Welcome back to Mondays with Mom, the podcast where my mom, Leah,
Hi there.
and I, Jo, dive into her stories, experiences, and the lessons she's hoping I finally take to heart. My mom has always dreamed of turning her life into a book or a movie, and this podcast is our way of making that dream come true, one episode at a time. Right, Mom?
Thanks, Joey.
So, what kind of story have you got for me this week?
Okay, well, so as you know, last night I went to a fancy function with George. One of these
Hoity-toity,
absolutely
la-di-da.
snooty functions where you've got to be all dressed up and dollied up and be very serious. Also attending the function was the president of the parliament.
Ooh, not the president of the country.
No, the president of the parliament specifically. So apparently what he actually does, the poor guy, he's responsible for discipline in the parliament and for...
Sounds serious.
Yeah, can you just imagine being responsible for disciplining all the Greek MPs? I wouldn't want that job. So he actually kind of controls the daily agenda and the meetings and that
Okay.
kind of thing. And he seems to do a lot of other work that, when he made his speech that I found quite fascinating because I, didn't even know what an important role the guy has. Anyway, besides the point, because this function was attended by all the various ambassadors,
Yeah.
including, of course, the South African ambassador to Greece, who I met,
Uh-huh.
and she's very sweet. And then during this function, I also met another woman, and she was this young, pretty African woman who spoke in Greek initially. And I just kind of got wind of something she was saying and found out that she was married to a Greek guy.
Okay, cool.
And I thought that was interesting. So I just started speaking to her, and she started telling me that her parents are both from Uganda. And then someone around mentioned to her that, listen, are you more comfortable speaking in English? And she said, oh, I would love to speak in English. She said, I've been trying to learn Greek and I've kind of used up all the vocab that I have so far. And I'm almost quite desperate to speak in English, which was fun for me.
Yeah.
So I turned immediately to speak in English. And as I started speaking, she said, oh, my word. And I said, what's going on? She said, oh, your accent. She said, a South African accent. I love a good South African accent.
Which is crazy because I don't think you sound very South African.
It's weird, but every South African person hearing me will automatically know that I'm from South Africa.
I like that. It's like when they spot you abroad.
Exactly.
And they hear you abroad, it's always this light bulb moment. Like, I know where you're from.
And people get really excited, especially if they're from there. Apparently, what had happened with this particular woman is her parents had come from Uganda to South Africa before she was born. So she actually ended up
Growing up
in South Africa. She was born and grew up in South Africa. And she even, we got to the point of discussing university. And she had even studied at Wits University.
The same university as you.
The same university as me, which I happened to say, oh, yes, I also studied at Wits. I asked her what she studied. She mentioned to me that she studied psychology. And I thought, ooh, that's, we're kind of on the same wavelength because it's an allied medical thing. And I said, oh, well, I studied physiotherapy. And then George kind of creeped into the conversation and he said, well, you have to tell her how you ended up studying physiotherapy.
And that's quite a story.
And I thought, okay, so I gave her the short version, but that made me think that on our podcast today, I should give our listeners the long version.
Oh, I can't wait. I do love the story.
It is quite a story. So, Jo, as you know, when you're still quite young, you're in grade 10 already, and people start asking you, oh, what are you going to study when you grow up? And it's quite a thing because you literally have got absolutely no clue. You're still trying to figure out who you are.
And you had to pick out subjects before grade 10 for the supposed thing that you're supposed to know what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
Exactly. So by the 9th grade already, you have to pick subjects. And at that point, I mean, does anyone really know what they're going to do and what they want to study?
I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. So do you remember they used to bring in psychologists and do all these aptitude tests and try figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at, that kind of thing.
I had one tell me, please don't ever be an architect.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't have someone testing me on that, but I'm sure they would have said the same to me. There would have been a lot of things that they would tell me not to do. But I remember what had come out of my aptitude tests was basically something that I knew all along anyway, was that I get along with people. I'm good with people. I enjoy talking to people. So basically do something that involves people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that
much was obvious.
and that narrows it down to what? Don't go,
Don't be an office worker.
yeah, I don't know, don't be an actuary and don't be an accountant and don't, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And in fact, I mean, which makes it quite funny, my favorite subject at school was French.
Which is completely unrelated.
Completely unrelated. So I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with that. My second favorite subject, I would say, was biology.
Uh-huh.
And I enjoyed the workings of the human body, and I enjoyed figuring out, I don't know, how the heart works, how the eye works, and all those kind of things. I really didn't want the reproductive cycle of the fern. That I remember that, nor did I want to know that earthworms are hermaphrodites and have both male and female sexual organs. I don't even want to know how the earthworms reproduce.
That says a lot about your love of biology that you still remember that.
Okay, well, there you go.
I did not know that.
There you go. But I mean, the things that stood out to me were the animal and human study part of biology. And then
The earthworms are animals too.
yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember what they're classified as, but they don't feel like animals. And then I remember enjoying science, but definitely not the terminal velocity of a ball once it's bounced twice. And I hated that.
So no physics.
No physics, but I really, really enjoyed the chemistry. And also, I've always had this fascination for some reason with medicines. I've always been very interested in how they work and what vitamins do and that kind of thing. So,
and you're still interested in that.
I am. And I enjoy.
She's the pill queen.
I'm the pill queen.
She knows, like, you're sick or you have an ailment, she'll tell you exactly what to take and how to take it and the dosage and what to pair it with, and she just knows it all.
So it's always been a thing of mine. And so I decided that it almost would come naturally to me that I should study pharmacy.
Yeah.
But your grandfather had totally different ideas.
Uh-huh.
He was horrified that I wanted to study pharmacy. And he said to me that what would happen to me is I would study for 4 years and then I would become a glorified cafe owner.
What does that mean?
So for people that don't know and for the non-South Africans, when Greek people left Greece and went to South Africa in the early 60s, a lot of them opened up these like miniature grocery stores, kind of a store that would sell a little bit of everything. Like it would sell your cigarettes, fruits, vegetables, magazines, newspapers, frozen stuff, kind of like a convenience store, like you'd get like one of these
like
days.
A spaza shop.
Yes, a bit like a spaza shop, but maybe better stocked than that, like also stocking food, because usually I haven't seen in a lot of spaza shops like chicken and meat and that kind of thing. So a little bit more, almost like a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven, that kind of thing. And they would call them cafes. I'm not sure why, but I mean, the shops were called cafes.
Okay.
Like a cafe, but a cafe. So he said to me, probably because he lived in Greece. And as you know, Jo, I mean, now we've seen that literally every 20 meters in Greece, there's a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And wasn't the case in South Africa. But anyway, so he had said to me, he felt that the people that owned these pharmacies were almost like cafe owners. And what he meant by that is that you're kind of stuck in the shop for long hours.
Yeah.
From early in the morning till the evening, and you're kind of in your shop and you've got shop hours. And so, I mean, obviously he was being a little bit narrow-minded because you could study to be a pharmacist and you could go work in research. You could go work in a laboratory. You could go work for a cosmetics firm. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot more that you can do. But he said, absolutely not. I'm not going to let you do this because it's going to destroy your life.
Okay, well, destroy your life sounds a bit like over the top, but okay. I wonder where you got your over the topness from.
So anyway, I then decided that I needed to come up with plan B. And so plan B, I went back to the drawing board and back to the whole aptitude test and thought, okay, I enjoy working with people. Okay, I don't enjoy the reproductive system of the earthworm, but I do enjoy biology and I am fascinated by medicine. So how about I do something in the medical profession? Now, I never wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
That was out. The reason why that was out is I've got these huge issues that I just don't want to have the responsibility of someone's life
in your hands.
Exactly, in my hands and on my conscience. So I take that way too seriously, and I think I would spend every night sleepless wondering if I've made the right diagnosis for someone, or I think I'd actually drive myself insane. So I knew that I didn't want to do that, and so I thought, okay, let's expand that search. How about one of the allied medical professions?
All right, like what?
Well, I discussed it with my faithful confidant, my sister, and shout out to Cleo again. I sat down with her and said, listen, I'm thinking of doing one of these allied medical things. What do you think? So she said, okay, well, let's have a look at them. And we looked at them, and the ones that were listed, psychology was not listed as an allied medical, even though I would say that it could be, but it isn't studied at medical school.
Okay.
So I looked at the ones that were studied at medical school, which
Like
gave...
a BSc.
It was a BSc, yes. These days you can do a BSc in psychology, but in those days it was
A BA.
it was more frequently a BA. I think unless you specifically studied neuropsychology, which was a BSc. So I thought, okay, I want to do a BSc and let's look at all these things. So we looked at them, and the options of the allied medical were basically radiology, speech therapy and audiology, occupational therapy, and physiotherapy.
Okay.
So I thought, let's look at those things.
Some options.
Let's look at them critically. So my sister stepped in
Okay.
and looked at these things and said, oh, no. And I said, what do you mean? She said, because she was already at university.
So she had some insight.
She had a bit more insight. Okay, so by this stage, we're talking about when we're actually doing the application. So I was in grade 11, which meant she was at first year university.
Yeah.
So she kind of said to me that, listen, we've got to get a few things straight and you've got to know something. So I said, okay, well, tell me. So she said, firstly, the radiologists, they wear brown. Now, in those days, yes, today is very in. And in fact, I wear brown often these days, and people often tell me I look good in brown. But in those days, brown was a no-no. Nobody wore brown. And she says
Except the radiologists.
Except the radiologists, exactly. And she said to me, they look awful. You don't want to do that. Spend your whole life in brown. And that sounded like a death sentence to me. Life in brown. Oh, no, no, no. So I thought, okay, scrap that one. I didn't even think of sending an application. So she said, okay. Then she said speech therapy. She said they wear this weird maroon red. And she said your hair's already got some red in it. And she said it's going to bring out the wrong red in your hair. You're going to look really, really bad. Don't do it.
No. So when you're talking about these colors that they're wearing, did you have to wear a uniform to varsity every day?
You had to wear a uniform, exactly that. So from second year, you actually had to wear a uniform. In first year, all of these professions, including, I think, medicine.
Like scrubs?
Not like scrubs, like a proper uniform, like a secretary type uniform, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
Like wearing a pencil skirt and a top, or
so
wearing those like
slacks or something.
Like slacks, those typical work pants.
Okay, so basically it didn't matter, like you weren't wearing like a specific like outfit, you just had to have a specific color.
You had to have a specific color, and in all of these professions, the top part of you was a white shirt.
Okay.
Like almost like those school white shirts.
So like were they telling you where to buy the specific color? Because that sounds very much like when we were in houses and like our inter-house competition and you saying you had to wear this very specific green or this very specific yellow.
What is weird is that there must have been, I mean, I didn't end up studying any of those things, so I wasn't sure, but there must have been because they all had the same shade.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like the girls wearing brown would be wearing like light brown, medium brown, tan. It was all dark brown, the one that's in fashion at the moment, that color. And I think
they still have those brown. Who wore brown? Radiology.
I
think the radiologists back then still have those outfits.
Probably not, and now they wish they did. So basically, I was told brown is out. It's not my color, which looking back, it might have been my color, but I'm glad that I didn't study radiology.
Yeah. Not your thing.
Not my thing.
I don't think radiology is also a very people-oriented profession either. I think like my perception of radiology is that they're like with their dark room and their x-rays.
I mean, I think they do kind of deal with people, but yes, I guess they don't really get close to people. It's more, hello, how are you? Breathe in, breathe out, lie still, don't move, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which might not be so bad, giving people orders, don't move. Maybe I would enjoy doing that. But anyway, I'm really glad that I didn't study.
Yeah, not your thing. Okay.
Not my thing. Moving on from that, we mentioned the speech and therapy. So we mentioned that maroon color that they would wear.
Oh, yeah.
And Cleo said to me, you're going to look awful. With the red that's already in your hair, you're going to look really bad. It's going to bring it all out. You're going to look pale. Don't do it.
Don't do it because you're going to look pale. Sound career advice.
And so that put audiology and
Speech
speech therapy
therapy.
out. Then the next option was occupational therapy.
Okay, and what do they wear?
They wore this very, and up until today, I must admit, a very ugly bottle green.
Like,
Now, I've been told many times that I look good in olive green, that, it brings out my eyes, but not this bottle green. I don't know if anyone looks good in bottle green. Apparently, if you have, because I once on a cruise did this little quick color course, and they said that green suits people that have very cool undertones. So like your more pinky looking people. So apparently people like you and I, Jo, who are more on the yellowy side, and we've got that kind of more warm undertone.
But what is bottle green anyway? Like, I'm struggling to imagine it.
Well, I was thinking about it now, and I think bottle green came from, I think, in South Africa, I think it came from beer bottles. They were like, I think Amstel beer had these green beer bottles, which look very nice in the bottle and when it's glass, but when it's this
when it's like
opaque material, it takes a very special person to look good in
bottle
that color.
green.
Yes.
Okay.
But on that note, a lot of people that were studying occupational therapy later on, it was generally girls that were studying it. And they kind of had that more typical, pretty South African blonde, blue-eyed look with a cool undertone.
And they suited the bottle green.
They actually, of anybody, they looked good in the bottle green.
Okay.
And that's not me.
Maybe they also did color analysis to choose their subject.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I shouldn't really admit to this anyway. So the last one on the list was physiotherapy. And basically, having gone to Seheti school, the colors of physiotherapy were identical to Seheti's uniform.
That navy blue.
It was a navy blue, and the physiotherapy was the only one that was a little bit more flexible. So you couldn't show up in light blue or baby blue. It had to be a navy, but if it was navy and a little bit royal, a combination of the two, you could do it. So you could have those varying shades of a dark blue.
Dark blue, okay. So you're sticking to your Greek roots still through your degree?
Well, I mean, that's what my sister said to me. She said, listen, you're going to look really bad. And she said, you're looking at approximately 4 years of your life. 4 years. In those 4 years, it's usually the time that people find their husbands. You'll never find anybody dressed in the other colors. You may as well stick to blue and white. I had I think at school there were a couple of people that liked me. So obviously blue and white was okay.
So you're like, stick to the tried and true.
Stick to the tried and true, the devil you know. So taking all of those very important factors into account, I selected physiotherapy as an allied medical profession.
Okay.
I remember at the time that it was quite difficult to get into physiotherapy. So there would be approximately 4,000 applicants.
That's a lot.
For WITS specifically, university. And of the 4,000, they would accept 40.
Whoa.
So your chances were a little bit limited.
Very slim.
Exactly. So there were a few things you had to do. You kind of had to, at the time, show some kind of leadership skill.
Okay.
And because I was deputy head girl at school, I thought, oh, I've got this in the bag.
Okay.
You had to show some kind of a interest in medical stuff. So I quickly went out and did a first aid course. You needed those kind of things. And you also needed to have very good marks.
Okay.
And beyond that, you had to make sure that when you were putting down, because the universities allow you to choose 3, you've got 3 choices.
Oh, and it's like
when you apply.
The order of the choices.
The order of your choices matter. So if physiotherapy was not option number 1, they would scrap you immediately. Nobody would ever accept you.
Wow, okay.
So you had to make sure it was option number 1. So I put it down as option number 1. As option number 2, I kind of was sticking to my guns, regardless of what your grandfather was saying. I put down pharmacy. And as a third option, I thought, well, if I don't get into any of those 2, I'll just do a general BSc and see where it takes me.
Okay. All right. So you kind of had a plan.
So I thought I had a plan. So anyway, initially, I applied. And in those days, those old days of no cell phones and no internet.
You had to get a letter.
You had to get a letter. And my letter never arrived.
Oh.
So I thought, okay. Obviously, they didn't like it. They didn't think my first aid course was good enough. I don't know what they thought. And I remember my sister deciding to fight for me. I'll never forget this because she was at university already. She went to the department and she said to them, I'm demanding an explanation as to why my sister was not granted an interview. Because what they would do is of the 4,000 people, they would have a look. Firstly, if you put it as your second choice, you're out. Secondly,
crazy
if your
as well.
marks aren't good enough, you're out. Thirdly, if you haven't shown any kind of aptitude, if your marks in biology and science aren't good enough, you're out. And they would kind of do that and kind of make the pool a little bit smaller
Okay.
to possibly 1,000 people. And of those 1,000, they would then choose, I think it was 400 that they would grant interviews to.
Okay.
And so she marched into the physiotherapy department and said, I demand to know why my sister wasn't at least granted an
Wow.
interview.
That's cool.
I mean, it's really cool. She was really fighting for me there. And they looked and they said, what are you talking about? So she said, well, she hasn't been given an interview. And they said, we sent her the application and we told her the date of the interview and your sister just didn't show up.
Oh.
So we went back and looked, and what had happened is that in our area, the postal service had a strike.
Oh.
And so my
never got that
letter
letter.
hadn't come to me. So she went there and said, well, she gave them this information, and they said, okay, we'll accept that. And so bring her in for an interview.
That's crazy as well that happened. And that caused you to miss an interview.
I mean, it's unbelievable, and unbelievable that she went there and demanded
fought for
this.
you, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, I'll forever be grateful to her because I think in the end, I was actually supposed to study that. Anyway, so they grant me an interview and I arrive there. Obviously, my dad had taken me. And as you walk into the interview and there are a whole lot of people, it's like what you see in the movies, like the people that are waiting in the room and they call in one at a time.
Yeah.
So there must have been about 20 people sitting in these chairs. And they weren't very comfortable chairs. They were just those regular ones that they use at schools and stuff that people aren't supposed to get very comfortable in.
Oh, yeah. Those
And-
plastic ones.
Exactly,
Those
plastic ones. And so we were sitting on those chairs and suddenly they came around and handed this piece of paper. And on this piece of paper, I'll never forget, it was like a small slip of paper. It said there, during your years of study as a physiotherapist, you will frequently be required to be partially undressed in front of members of your own and the opposite sex.
Oh, no.
If you're not prepared to do this, please don't attend the interview.
What a thing what a piece of paper to receive.
What a piece of paper. And so I read the piece of paper and then your grandfather read the piece of paper and he said, we're out of here. Get up. We're going. There is no way you're going to be taking off your clothes. And I said, oh, Dad, just let me at least go in for the interview. So
Yeah.
already when I went in, I was already in a little bit of a state.
I can imagine.
So I went in there and now I'm wondering about how naked I'd like planning my strip show instead of my career. And the way your grandfather, Papu, was talking about it, it was as if I was planning on, I don't know, yes, that he's going to pay all this money to send me to university so I can learn to be a well-paid stripper. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. Anyway, so I go into this interview.
Yeah.
And obviously now, they've narrowed this down to 400 people. And of the 400, they're going to accept 40.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm getting in because my marks were good. I put it down as a first choice. I had all the leadership roles and I had, put in a few things of I've done this community work and I've helped out here and helped out there. I thought I sounded really good. And so they asked me, I don't even know why, asked me that I hadn't actually planned to answer the question of why I want to study physiotherapy.
It's quite an important question. You should have thought of that.
I think it was because the whole interview process from the time they said come in was very, very quick. I didn't really have time to be prepared.
Yeah.
Because at that point, they were ending the interviews. It was the last bunch of people they were interviewing.
Okay.
So I walked in and they said, why do you want to study physiotherapy? And I was like, put on the spot. I just said to them, it's just something I feel I need to do. I said, I've got a need to be a physiotherapist.
A need for speed.
I've got a need. And now, funny enough, now looking back, a couple of years later when I was studying, we had a lecturer, and I'm wondering if she was one of the ones that was interviewing me. Because later on, as you got into it, you would see that some of the lecturers were there conducting the interviews. And I remember clearly, and it's only struck me now, believe it or not, that there was one particular lecturer that came in on the first day and she said, people that study physiotherapy are people that have a pathological need to be needed.
Oh.
And that just struck me right now, believe it or not. So I said to them, I have a need to study physiotherapy. And so they said to me, well, have you ever been to a physiotherapist, like for an injury? And I said, no. And they said, can you tell us exactly what a physiotherapist does? Now, in those days,
Yeah.
it wasn't like you could Google it quickly or go find in a book. And so, I don't know, I thought, okay, they do something for people with sports injuries. And I kind of had a vague idea that
Yeah.
that's what I would do. In my mind, I thought, okay, I'm going to be wearing this hot uniform. I'm going to join the
Springboks.
Olympic team, exactly, or the Springboks. I'm going to be rubbing hamstrings on hunky men. I thought this sounds like the dream job, but I wasn't going to tell them that. So I basically said, well, no, I mean, I know they do injuries and, sports injuries. And they said, what else does a physiotherapist do? And I said, well, I don't have a clue. And they said,
That's
so,
them.
yes. So they said, well, why do you want to become a physiotherapist? And I said, listen, this is too difficult for me to explain, but it's a need I have inside.
Okay.
And so looking back, it has to be that I had that one lecturer, because otherwise I would not have accepted me out of 400 applicants unless the others were really bad.
So you ended up picking your degree
Yes.
and your whole career over a fashion choice.
And then, I mean, because we were still, I did, I have to admit. And then while we were speaking on the topic of need, I think I do enjoy being needed by people. I
Yeah.
enjoy being needed by my family. The other need I had is to spend time convincing my father that I wasn't trying to become a well-paid prostitute, which was a huge issue for him. Absolutely
You
huge.
could have pointed the blame to your sister.
I mean,
Cleo.
in other podcasts, I will talk a little bit about the nakedness of physiotherapy because that was quite a thing. But ultimately, I ended up in the right profession.
Yeah, you ended up in a profession that suited you and that you suited.
Exactly. It suited me perfectly. Looking back, if I had, because a lot of my friends that did study pharmacy did end up owning their own shop, their
Yeah.
own actual pharmacy, because it is quite a profitable business.
Mhm.
But I think it did also tie them to certain hours. And I remember, working as a physiotherapist gave me a lot of freedom,
A lot of flexibility.
to be able to manage my own time.
And it also brought you to lots of like interesting places and you met lots of people through it.
And one of the things that happens with it is that you always end up building a relationship with the people that you actually work with.
Yeah.
Because you kind of work with them over a period of time and you have quite a close bond and you are getting physically very close to people, be it children or adults.
Mhm.
You're kind of like in their personal space.
Yeah.
And so you end up getting close to them physically and over time, and depending on what kind of person you are, you get close to them emotionally as well. So
Yeah.
I think in the end, it worked out really well for me and it suited me fantastically. I'm not sure. I mean, possibly looking back, I would have looked very good in brown and maybe would have ended up with one of these hunky doctors, like, I don't know, like a George Clooney when he starred on ER, or like a Derek from Grey's Anatomy that would have just
McDreamy.
McDreamy that would have seen me in brown and thought, whoa, that woman looks so good in brown. And then,
What's so interesting is that this whole color thing, I think, is only South African medicine, because I feel like if it was such a popular thing in other, like in America and stuff, you would have seen it on all their shows.
Well, I'm not sure if there are lots of shows about occupational therapists and speech therapists, or maybe it is that the kind of shows we're watching are often in hospitals, and
Yeah.
they tend to all just wear the
Blue
scrubs.
scrubs,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's because the hospital supplies those.
Yeah.
So you kind of have clean clothes every day that you change into, and when you leave, you wear your own clothes.
But wow, I still am in shock that you made a whole career choice based on a color.
I blame my sister totally,
And yet,
and my dad. I will take no responsibility for this, but
it all worked out in the end. And
it
it was
worked
the
out.
right choice, despite it being a color-based choice.
It was definitely the right choice for me. Definitely. And
I love this story, by the way. You've told it to me a couple of times. I've heard you tell it to other people. But it's a story I'd never get tired of because it's just so insane to me that that's how you chose your
it is insane. And had you or Tina ever attempted to base your career choices on color schemes, I think I would have had a nervous breakdown.
I think I wouldn't be alive.
So on that note,
On that note, it's been fun.
it's been a lot of fun.
I can't wait for next week's episode.
And I just want to quickly say how
we're grateful
grateful I am. I'm very grateful again for the podcast. I'm grateful for our listeners. I'm grateful for my sister and her great color advice.
Yeah.
And also grateful that she actually went and fought for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I am today.
I'm grateful for that too, because I think you picked the right career for you.
And yes, and I'm grateful that I ended up being a physiotherapist. It was something I absolutely loved doing.
I'm grateful I didn't have to base my degree on color. Like, I could just pick.
Well, I'm also grateful for that because knowing me, I would probably have picked the wrong color. So, on that note,
On that note,
thanks for listening,
thanks for
guys.
listening, and remember to follow us on Spotify or Apple and on Instagram if you enjoyed this episode. And we'll be back next week for another fun episode, and we'll see you guys there.
Look forward to next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.